After months of hearing Kevin Feige and Bob Iger admit there's something wrong with the MCU, it's just not translating correctly to Disney Plus. We're not sure what's going on here. It sounds like there are concrete plans. They're making sweeping overhauls to finally fix the MCU, specifically on Disney Plus. It's basically been a wash. I think a lot of people were excited. You had WandaVision, Loki, you had a couple of things come out early on. Falcon and the Winter Soldier that had a little bit of buzz to them, but that's basically all died at this point. And it turns out they realize that movies and television are two different entities, and you should probably treat them as two separate things, although I do think they're still making some enormous mistakes. But this does sound like a big part. Obviously, this is all being burned down because apparently Daredevil Born Again, which is one of the shows people are actually looking forward to, was so bad after they were halfway done with it and the writer's strike and the actor's strike started. They actually got to look at it. They're like, oh my goodness, we actually can't produce this. We can't deliver it to people or they're going to turn on us because it looks so terrible. We're going to scrap everything. We're going to fire the directors. We're going to fire the writers. And we're going to start over because this is absolutely untenable. And it's flowing out into the rest of the MCU and how they treat it on Disney Plus. They're actually going to treat it like television, which I personally think would be a welcome change. Marvel is making concrete changes in how to make TV. It now has plans to hire showrunners. Jessica Gale's post-production work on She-Hulk helped Marvel see that it would be helpful for its shows to have a creative through line from start to finish. The studio also plans on having full-time TV execs rather than having executives straddle both television and film. It's really surprising that, like, after, 3 years now since we've had Marvel shows on Disney Plus, they just now figured out maybe we actually need a showrunner to steer the creative direction of the show. It took them this long and this many failures and this many people becoming dissatisfied and disinterested in the MCU as a whole. Then they go, you know what? Maybe we should treat the Disney Plus shows featuring MCU characters as television shows like we should. Maybe now we'll actually get shows that are treated like television. You know, where you have an episode that has an entire 3-act structure into it, where you have a beginning, you know, you have your conflict, and then you have your resolution by the end, with a couple of subplots running through it that get wrapped up at the very end of the season, you know, in the finale or whatever, and a couple of them reach into the next season. That would actually be nice if they treated these like actual television shows rather than really boring ass, like 8-hour movies that go nowhere. I'm telling you, with all of these MCU shows, you could actually go in there. You could probably edit them down to about an hour and a half and have a movie that's not nearly as boring, probably just as bad because the quality isn't there, but it wouldn't be nearly as boring, nearly as filler-filled as all these stupid Disney Plus, MCU, and Star Wars shows. Do you think they would have figured this stuff out? And one of the big reasons that the Fox acquisition was kind of smart for Disney, because yes, they had obviously done a lot of television for Disney on the Disney Channel, Disney Junior, all that kind of stuff, and certainly they have ABC. But when they acquired Fox, they were getting really cool television studios like FX and people that had done like prestige-level television that would know how to come in on a property like this, like the MCU, and actually know how to turn it into a TV show that's compelling, really do great season-long arcs that would have people like frothing at the mouth for more. And it seems like they just fired all those people. They didn't even want to use their expertise. They just, I guess, wanted the Fantastic Four and X-Men characters, and they just kept treating MCU television shows like they were movies. And the idea that Jessica Gale's work on She-Hulk was the big epiphany moment, the big mind-blowing moment. We're like, oh my goodness, we should treat this like a television. Like, She-Hulk was embarrassing. She-Hulk should have been the biggest lesson anyone at Disney and Marvel Studios had learned, that you actually have to have good, competent people that actually have good creative through line throughout the entire process to put something out there. Because it doesn't matter that Jessica Gale was, I guess, the writer, came back in post-production to oversee everything there at the end to make sure it all worked in the end, because the show absolutely sucked because they had no good creative to it. Now, we do know that they've definitely gone out of their way to hire more esteemed, more prestigious, better writers to actually write the scripts for the shows and stuff like that. We shall see if it's actually any better in the future. But yeah, how about we start treating Disney Plus streaming MCU shows like actual television instead of really long, boring ass movies? That would be a great thing. And I can't believe it took them this long to realize you can't treat television the same way that you do movies. Completely different audiences, completely different expectations when you go into a movie theater rather than when you're sitting on your couch with your weekly fix watching your favorite television show. Yeah, you're not exactly expecting all this amazing spectacle that you're going to get into a movie with the great sound and all that kind of stuff that happens on the big screen when you're getting that big action-packed moment, you know, in an MCU movie. if you're on your couch, yeah, there should be some action, and there certainly should be some moments like that throughout the season, maybe one or two that stand out. But for the most part, it needs to be character driven. And I think another enormous problem with Disney Plus MCU shows is they haven't picked out very good characters. We'll get to that here in a moment, but we do have a couple more changes to talk about that they decided to implement to help fix the MCU following the debacle that is apparently Daredevil Born Again. It also is revamping its development process. Showrunners will write pilots and show Bibles, the days of Marvel shooting an entire series from She-Hulk to Secret Invasion, then looking at what's working and what's not are done. The studio plans on leading into the idea of multi-season serialized TV, stepping away from the limited series format that has defined it. Marvel wants to create shows that run several seasons, where characters can take time to develop relationships with the audience rather than feeling as if they are there to set up a big crossover event. And as someone that primarily covers comic books here on this channel, that's been an enormous problem for Marvel Comics and DC Comics as well. People just don't invest in miniseries like they do with an actual ongoing series. People want to know that they're coming in for something that's going to be long-reaching, long-arching, where they're really investing in real character growth. You really can't do that in 4 episodes or 4 comic books or 8 episodes or 12 issues of a miniseries or maxi series at that point. Customers prefer ongoing series, especially with a lot of these superhero properties, and that's what serves them best. The idea that they were just going to put out a bunch of miniseries featuring characters, so instead of introducing them in a movie and wasting a little bit of screen time, on the big screen, they can do it on the MCU on Disney Plus and then put them in a movie, as if that was ever going to work. If you want the best example of that, look what's happening with Miss Marvel right now. They decided they were going to introduce that plucky little hero played by Iman Vellani in Disney Plus. Guess what? Lowest watched Disney Plus MCU show of all times. Well, that doesn't matter. Let's actually make her a co-starring feature in the next Captain Marvel movie, The Marvels or whatever. And shockingly, the numbers for The Marvels isn't tracking very well now that pre-sales are out there. They also try to put Miss Marvel on ABC. Look, we've got this great lead. Too bad it's a character nobody cares about, but she's going to be in a movie soon, sitting next to Brie Larson, as everyone's bored to death when they realize that you spent $300 million to make Freaky Friday. It's absolutely insane what Marvel thinks are going to work these days, as if they can just put any character out there with the MCU logo on it, and it's going to work. The jig is up. People have realized that after Endgame, the MCU ain't so much must-see TV. It ain't so much must-see movies. The MCU is find the character that you like with the story that you want to see and go enjoy that and skip the rest, because there's so much mediocre quality out there that it's not really worth investing in. And I think having showrunners actually have to do pilots and show Bibles and present their work before actually shooting all of it and say, hey, this is the story that we're going to take the character on. This is what that side character is going to do. This is the overarching villain. This is why he's bad. This is what he represents. This is how we're going to break it up. And this is where we're going long term. If we get a second or third season, makes the creators have to think about that and maybe have a little bit of ownership. Unlike what you saw with She-Hulk, where you had a bunch of people go in there with an agenda. We're like, well, not my character, not my studio. Probably not going to get a season 2. Why don't we just make something that's going to make everyone angry? Probably not the best idea in the world. Now the showrunners, who I believe have to be union writers at this point, are actually going to go out there and find the best talent, because they're going to work on the second, third, fourth, fifth season as they develop these stories and these plans and these arcs for these characters that are long running. And I am very happy that they are going to be treating like the MCU on Disney Plus like real television now, because it's gotten very tiresome. It's absolutely insane that Secret Invasion had a budget of $225 million that we know of. That is a July blockbuster MCU movie budget, and they put it on a television show that quite frankly sucked, that had no creative direction, that had a story that nobody liked. And don't forget, it had the old Daenerys Targaryen in there. Why do they keep putting her in anything? Do I think this is going to fix everything that's wrong with the MCU? Absolutely not. Because I think there are deep-seated cultural issues within Marvel Studios and really Disney as a whole. But these changes should make things more palatable, or at least on the surface. Although I still think they're making a whole lot of mistakes, especially with the characters that they're choosing. The article concludes stating, some of its next shows, in fact, promise to be more personal stories. Echo, which premieres in January, is a grounded crime story with few visual effects, revolving around deaf Native American anti-hero Maya Lopez. Wonder Man, a show that was paused because of the writers and actors strike, is meant to be a behind-the-scenes look at Hollywood and a character study of Simon Williams, a superhero who has a side gig as an actor and stunt person. Brad Winderbaum, Marvel's head of streaming, television, and animation, says he wants people to watch the shows because they love the characters. It should work, he says, beyond the fact that it ties into other projects, or if they are going to be in a movie, or if it's setting up an Avengers film. Nobody in the history of the world ever asked for an Echo show. That was before Echo actually premiered in that Hawkeye series, and it turns out that you got, I don't know, a potato to play the fucking character. The actress has no charisma whatsoever, no screen presence whatsoever, yet you're actually going to front an entire superhero show with the lady that was playing Echo in Hawkeye, which is absolutely ridiculous. There is no cachet with Wonder Man. No one's heard of the character. No one cares about Wonder Man. And the idea that it's going to be like a behind-the-scenes parody about Hollywood, I don't personally care how funny and hijinky Hollywood writers and producers think Hollywood is. Sometimes it works, yes, every once in a while. But for the most part, it's a pretty played-out trope that isn't all that interesting. The best thing that Marvel Studios could do, what Kevin Feige could do, would be to just separate all television and movie stuff. Actually create your own television universe that's self-contained. And yes, there might be a crossover here and there between your television universe, but it never really interacts with the movie stuff. You can have different versions of the same characters in the television universe and the movie universe. They actually don't have to be the same actors, and you can tell different stories with them because they are two different mediums themselves. And then everything won't be connected. You want to know why the MCU sucks so much? Because of all the goddamn homework. I don't want to watch every MCU show on Disney Plus just to understand what's actually going to happen in the movie. And I certainly don't want to watch every MCU movie with the knowledge that if I don't, I won't understand what's happening in the other movies and shows and stuff like that. It's fine having a connected, shared movie universe, but it doesn't need to connect and share with the television universe. I don't understand how they haven't learned this lesson. There's a reason that the Marvel, like Defenders universe, Daredevil universe, whatever you wanted to call it, that they had on Netflix was so successful because it was a version of Marvel that was explicitly different than the one on the big screen. It was a different viewing experience. It was a different set of characters, and it was a different type of storytelling. And it allowed people to go and enjoy something that wasn't quite as bombastic and over the top as far as the action pieces and all the CGI. You could still enjoy the characters, but it was more character driven. It was a little bit darker. And the storytelling was a little bit more intimate as the way you were experiencing it at Netflix. Just separate the two damn things. Get your own television executives to run the television side. Leave the movie people still in charge of the movie side. And I think you've probably got a more winning success than what you're trying to do now, to where everything has to connect together. It's just it's too much. Trying to keep up with every MCU movie and television show and then finding out how they actually connect together was just too much work, way too much homework. And while I do appreciate the changes that the MCU is making, as someone that's consumed a ton of MCU when it comes to movies and television, I don't think they're quite going far enough. This will make it better, but until they just separate all of it and do their own television universe and movie universe and let the people play in their own playgrounds, it's going to be too much work, and more people are going to lose interest in the MCU over time, and it's just kind of be a dead brand altogether. And it certainly has been an odd experience as someone that's basically been covering the rise and fall of the MCU as it's happening in real time, and I continue to do so. I would say if you would like to support the channel and get some more content, we are doing a lot of really exciting things on Patreon right now. Over 6 hours of new exclusive content every single week on Patreon, especially like the audio content. We even have a tier where you can get all the audio recordings of all the YouTube videos right there. So you can actually listen to them if you prefer to just listen to the videos rather than watching them, because YouTube does absolutely suck. If you want to listen to something, you try to put your phone to sleep and next thing you know, the audio stops and stuff like that. You will not have that problem with the Patreon, especially on the second tier that we have. And there's a whole lot of other exclusives that I think you will like there. And we have great conversations with Aaron Sparrow, lots of more doc content as well. Definitely check out my Patreon. And we do have a free week's trial going on right now for the $10 and $20 tiers. If you want to go check it out and see if it's for you.